Hi, and welcome back to the Save It for Parts channel. Today we're on board the mining ship Red Dwarf. So I'm here visiting our friends Bill and Jen, who have an extensive collection of Red Dwarf props, set pieces, and costumes from the iconic BBC TV series. This is not Bill and Jen, but they were a little camera shy, so I have to do the introduction with some of their friends here. If you're a regular viewer of my channel, then you'll notice this is not my typical content. So if you've never seen Red Dwarf, if you have no idea what's going on here, I do apologize. But if you are a fan of Red Dwarf or of low-budget BBC sci-fi props, this is the video for you. The BBC is well known for producing high-quality television shows on little to no budget. Many people will be familiar with classics like Doctor Who, but Red Dwarf was right up there with classic low-budget sci-fi that manages to combine humor, serious topics, action, and just general fun. And they did it on a very limited budget. So a lot of the props and costumes and sets that you see here are made out of found objects. They're made out of everyday household objects. They're made out of thrift store costumes, clothing, and just whatever the production crew could get their hands on. Now, that being said, a lot of these are high-quality props, and many of them still look good decades after the original show aired. These are from various seasons and various episodes. I will try to describe where each prop or costume or set piece came from to the best of my ability and the best of the research that the owners did on the provenance of these and which episodes they appeared in. Several of these props have been modified to appear as different props or different ships in different episodes, and that was just very common with low-budget sci-fi stuff. You'd use what you had on hand. If you needed a new gun or a new ship, you would modify one from an old season that you weren't necessarily using anymore. If you're curious how collectors in the United States came across all this stuff from a British TV show, they picked up a lot of it at the estate sale of another collector, and then they've also collected some of this stuff from various other sources, eBay, other estate sales, other places online. It's possible this is the largest single collection of Red Dwarf paraphernalia. There are probably collectors over in the UK who have some of the big iconic pieces from the show, but here in the US, there is not that much of it going around, and a lot of it is here in this house. So let's take a look at some of the pieces in this collection. This red outfit was a costume from Series 6 worn by Chris Berry playing Arnold Rimmer. This one, or very similar red outfit, appeared in quite a few episodes, and there's not an exact screen match for this particular one, but it does have a COA from the Prop Store of London. This collection has a few items like that where we were not able to exactly screen match it, but there are COAs, and they did come from the original sets and dressing rooms. This yellow tunic is also a Rimmer outfit from Series 6, Episode 6, Out of Time. It was worn by Old Rimmer. This next jacket was worn by the Cat in Series 7, Episode 8. The Cat character, played by John-Jules, was well known for his flashy fashion sense, and he rarely wore the same thing twice. So there are some pretty unique and pretty interesting Cat outfits in this collection. Some of this stuff originally came from various prop store auctions before making its way to the current owners, and some of the costumes have been a little bit jumbled up. For example, the pants with this set don't match the screen-matched jacket found in the episode, but they do have a COA. Next up, we have a costume from the Legion character. Now, Red Dwarf was an interesting sci-fi concept in that it almost never showed aliens. In fact, I don't think there were any aliens in the entire show. Every bizarre creature that appeared in the show was explained as being either a human descendant, genetically engineered, a hologram, something evolved from Earth life like the Cat. This is a sci-fi universe populated entirely by humans and human-created creatures, which is somewhat unique. The only other show I can think of would be Firefly, which didn't have any aliens, at least in the first season, and we never got more seasons to find out if they would introduce aliens in the future. This next one is really cool. This is one of Lister's spacesuits. Now, this did not appear in an episode, but it did appear on the back cover of the DVD set. And Craig Charles, who played Dave Lister, has confirmed that it was him in the shots on the DVD cover wearing the suit. This one is really fun. It has a lot of interesting little touches. It does have some lights and some effects, but not all of them work anymore. There are a variety of costumes from Series 8, which was known as the prison season. So there's a guard outfit with helmet, there is a canary costume, and this particular canary outfit does not have one of the major characters' names on it, so we think that it was probably a background character. There are a few other random costumes in this collection that came from various side characters, background characters. flashback episodes, flash forward episodes. The show really jumped around a lot, and sometimes you'd get different versions of the same character, or you'd get different outfits from alternate dimensions or flashbacks or things of that nature. So they have a few costumes worn by Christine Kochanski, played by both Chloe Arnett and Claire Grogan. A few other costumes which might have been worn by ship crew and supporting characters. This silver costume is really cool. This was worn by Kochanski in Series 7, Episode 8, and several of the crew had silver jackets like this in the episode, which have been distributed amongst different collectors. Circling back to some of my earlier shots with the two mannequins, the red costume is a Kochanski outfit, probably from Series 7, but it has not exactly been screen matched. Again, this is one that has a COA, but we're not sure exactly when it was used. The one on the left with the hologram mannequin is from the Holoship episode, Series 5, Episode 1, and this was not a Rimmer costume, although he was in a very similar one. Next up, we have some very iconic outfits from Dave Lister. He was known for wearing kind of these dark-colored, beat-up jumpsuits, waistcoats, things like that, usually covered in patches, artwork, graffiti, and whatever else. Now, some of these have been screen matched to various episodes, but have also had some modifications over time. I'm not sure if those were early restoration attempts or modifications by prior owners before the current collectors got them. We're not really sure, but some of the patches are definitely not original to the show. It can be difficult to maintain and preserve stuff like this, especially costumes. Things decay over time. They were treated pretty roughly in the show, especially if there were any stunts or effects going on. A lot of times there would be multiple versions of the same outfit, and then stuff just decays over time. Glue breaks down, foam breaks down, embellishments on costumes or props tend to fall off or break. So sometimes by the time they've gone through multiple collectors, there can be pieces missing, there could be pieces that have been added, or things that were attempted to be restored to various levels of expertise. And again, this is super common with old props and costumes. They were usually intended as a one-off, and so they were very temporarily made, very cheaply made, and the materials they were made from just tend to break down over time. These flashy outfits are fun. These showed up in Series 3, Episode 1, where Crichton and Lister were trapped moving backwards in time, and they had sort of a stage act as the Reverse Brothers. Here's another prisoner outfit or jumpsuit from Series 8. So here's another cool cat jacket from Danny John-Jules. Now this is a rare cat outfit that actually showed up in multiple episodes. So this appeared in Series 1, Episode 5, as well as Series 2, Episode 1. And this one is really neat. You can see the cat's crazy style and crazy modifications, and yeah, this is just a very classic cat jacket. Moving on to weapons and sci-fi blasters and whatnot, there are a couple different props used in Series 8 by both Canaries and prison guards. There's also this harpoon gun from Series 8, Episode 4, and this is a super iconic Mark I bazookoid, something that shows up in multiple series, multiple episodes. Although there is a little uncertainty about this particular one, we believe it was made by Andy Hopkinson, who made the bazookoids for the show, but we think that it was not actually show used. It may have been a replica that Andy created for himself. Moving on, we have another interesting bazookoid, or bazooka in this case. This one is from the US version of Red Dwarf, which was kind of a short-lived attempt to Americanize the show that I don't think really went anywhere. Now, this one is cool not just because it was made for Red Dwarf, but it was also used on Babylon 5 as well as Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So this has really gotten around in sci-fi franchises, and if you're a fan of any of those shows, you've probably seen it multiple times on multiple ships and space stations. Next up, we have another super iconic piece, Dave Lister's guitar. This showed up in many, many episodes, and this is probably Lister's best known guitar, although there's also a white guitar that shows up in a few episodes, and that's also in this collection. Here's another cool example of a scratch-built prop that you can tell was made out of whatever the production crew had lying around. There's a shipping case for probably some kind of AV equipment. There are random broken microphones. This is the Triplicator from Series 5, Episode 5, and it's a fun comedy take on the old duplicator trope. Instead of just creating one duplicate of an item, which in most shows usually turns out to be either a good duplicate or a bad duplicate, this one just goes ahead and creates both, the good version and the evil version of whatever goes in the middle. Halfway through editing this, I realized I was wearing an Alan Pan Mythbusters shirt, and in fact I'm wearing it now, totally coincidentally. This is just one of my favorite shirts, so I wear it a lot. I am not trying to copy Adam Savage's videos about sci-fi props, which he does a lot of, and he does really well, so if you haven't seen those, I recommend checking them out. We filmed all this back in late 2024, so it's taken me this long to get all the footage figured out, get everything organized, figure out what I'm doing with it. I'm still figuring out what I'm doing with it. So any similarity to other sci-fi prop videos is totally a coincidence. And if Adam Savage is watching, then I apologize. I was not trying to copy your style. This cargo container miniature shows up in the landing bay in Series 8, and there's some more landing bay stuff that we'll get to in a few minutes. You may have noticed the control console sitting in front of the mannequins that I showed earlier. This one is from Series 8, Episode 3, and can be seen when the crew is trapped in a virtual reality simulation. So this one is really cool. This is a miniature spaceship, but for a miniature, this is huge. It's several feet long. It has its own interior lighting. It has kind of a rig on the bottom where it could be put on a motion control arm or something of that nature. The prop here is labeled as the Centauri, which I believe appeared in Series 7, both Episode 1 and Episode 6, and then I think it showed up in a couple other seasons as different ships, and may have been modified over time. Another ship in this collection is the Ouroboros Shuttle, or White Midget. This shows up in Series 7, Episode 3. And again, I think this is one that may have appeared in the background of several episodes. That was pretty common for a show like this. They would reuse whatever models they had lying around. Sometimes they would reuse the same establishing shots for different throwaway scenes. This is the Inquisitor's Glove from Series 5, Episode 2. This is a pretty neat prop from a pretty interesting character. He was basically time-traveling around judging all the other characters and could use the glove as both a weapon and a time machine. This one is starting to suffer some wear and tear. A lot of the foam parts on this are starting to fall apart, so it's a little bit hard to keep something like this preserved properly. This asteroid model has not been screen matched, and we're not quite sure how it fits into the show, but it does have a COA from the prop store, so it was part of the Red Dwarf prop collection and may have appeared in the background somewhere. They have a few cans of leopard lager, which you can often see cluttering up Dave Lister's accommodations. They also have a few of these smaller light-up electronic gadgets. Not quite sure what these go to, but you can tell they were made out of surplus audio equipment that the crew had and random battery-powered lights and whatnot. Now, this collection has a couple of Crichton's heads. Crichton was the robot or android from the show. One of the heads is a reproduction, but this one was actually made for the show, although it wasn't actually used in the show. I think the story here is that one of the special effects shots needed to blow up Crichton's head, so the production crew made several backups of the head in case they got the shot wrong and they needed to blow up another one. They got the effects shot in one take, and so the spare head just kind of ended up in the back room of the production company. This would have appeared in Series 7, Episode 6. Similar to the Leopard Lager, we have some ships-issued mushy peas. I believe these are from Series 8, but not sure exactly which episode. Now, you've already seen parts of the landing bay in a couple of my other shots. This is probably the biggest single piece in this collection, at least the physically biggest piece. This appeared in the opening sequence for Series 8 and showed up a few other times in various episodes. This has a ton of little details. It is big, it is heavy, and if you zoom in close, there are just all kinds of cool little touches. It does have a few touches that are not necessarily original, like the Red Dwarf lettering, but most of this is original. This little golf figure showed up in Series 3, Episode 5, and this crashed Starbug part was in the extras from Series 3, Episode 2, although it didn't actually show up in the episode. If you're familiar with the show, the Starbug ship crashed basically in every episode, and so they had a bunch of spares of the model. They had a bunch of single parts like this for various crash scenes. Starbug is so popular that there was even a miniature toy released for a while, although I think that in itself is also a rare collector's piece because there weren't very many of them sold. These are a pair of the escort boots from Series 4, Episode 3, and these were kind of like futuristic leg shackles that would guide people through the Justice space station. They're pretty cool, and they even have some light-up effects, so these are neat props. Some other neat pieces from this collection are these storyboards. This would have been sketched out by the art department or the producers kind of before the episode was put together, just as a way of planning shots, figuring out what scenes they wanted to film, how things would be laid out, how they would do certain special effects, things of that nature. So that's about all I have for the documented props, or at least what the collectors have in their documentation. They have information on a bunch more of these, and I recognize some of these other pieces that I'm showing now from various episodes, although I can't necessarily rattle off the series and episode name for some of these. So I'm just going to go through and show more pieces that are in the same collection, not necessarily with much detail because I don't always remember all the detail from them. I have actually watched all the episodes. I enjoy the show, and it's really, really fun to see the actual physical pieces that showed up in the episodes, see the craftsmanship that went into these, see how the show producers and set designers made things that looked reasonably sci-fi futuristic, just made out of foam and spare parts. So we're not 100% sure, but we think this might be the single biggest collection of Red Dwarf props and set pieces anywhere in the world. And the owners are kind of looking for more, so if you have some Red Dwarf stuff that you want to get rid of, leave me a comment, send me a message, I will pass that along to them. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is not the typical content of my channel. Normally, I am doing DIY projects, and I am doing things more akin to building props out of spare parts than looking at actual props from actual shows. But if this is something you'd like to see more of, let me know down in the comments. And if you do like low-budget sci-fi stuff, then make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it when I try to build a no to low-budget sci-fi spaceship out of junk that I already have lying around my house. So stay tuned to the Save It for Parts channel so you don't miss that. Thank you to everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.